Hello, good morning. At a time when millions of public sector workers have had their pay frozen, company bosses in the UK's top listed firms have seen a big rise in their earnings.
The pay monitoring group Income's Data Services says directors in FTSE 100 companies have had a 49% increase in their pay packages in the past year. That includes their salary, bonuses and other benefits. The pay of a typical private sector employee rose by just 2.6%. That's well behind the cost of living.
As many struggle with the rising cost of living, it seems things just get better for those in the boardroom. Salaries and bonuses for the UK's top executives continued to soar this year, despite the recession. A report by the pay monitoring group Income's Data Services found that directors' pay rose by almost 50% in the past year, taking their average earnings to just under £2.7 million. Average bonus payments increased by 23% to £906,000.
When they pay out, as they have for a minority this year, they are quite considerable, over £10 million in many cases. And when that's all added up, that does boost the total earnings by 49% on average.
The figures come as many employees are experiencing wage cuts, with salaries failing to keep up with inflation.
I think it's very hard to justify those sorts of pay increases in today's economy. The economy's going down, companies are cutting back, they're laying off staff, and average wages have gone up 1 to 2%, which isn't even keeping up with price rises. So how anyone can justify a 49% pay increase is beyond me.
But speaking to BBC News, businessman Sir Martin Sorrell defended the rise.
I invest my money in the company. I have a stake in the company which over the last 26 years I have invested in. Pretty much come hell or high water.
The government's already launched a review of executive pay and how it's reported, with the aim of making it more transparent. Rebecca Barry, BBC News.
Well, earlier, as you saw there, I spoke to Deborah Hargreaves, who's chair of the High Pay Commission, and asked her whether she thought company directors were worth such a big pay rise.
Well, I think it's very hard to justify those sorts of pay increases in today's economy. The economy's going down, companies are cutting back, they're laying off staff, and average wages have gone up 1 to 2%, which isn't even keeping up with price rises. So how anyone can justify a 49% pay increase is beyond me.
The other point is that these rises do not appear, in general, to have been matched by the average performance of their companies.
No, indeed. Share prices have done nothing over the year and profits are down. And so it's kind of hard to understand what these bonuses are being paid for. Executives are meant to have bonuses tied to the performance of their company, but these seem to be paid whether the company does well or not.
We heard before the news Martin Sorrell, a well-known businessman, defending his increase and other people's increases. How do you think he can do that?
I think it's quite hard to defend these pay rises. I think what it shows is that these executives live in a different world from the rest of us. They tend to be quite isolated. They live in a world where everyone is paid similarly. They buy private services. They don't engage with the rest of society. And I think it's hard for them to realise what sort of hardship regular, ordinary people are going through.
So we're saying that the market for these senior executives isn't working as it should. They're basically getting the pay and they're not delivering the goods.
Yes, we are. And I think shareholders who are paying these pay rises, obviously, are not getting what they pay for.
What can anybody do about it? What can you do about it? Have you got any influence, your body?
Yes, we're coming out with our final report on November the 22nd, and we have got some recommendations in there. We think, for example, that remuneration committees that set the pay for these executives should be reformed and should have their remit changed. We also think pay should be simplified. These packages have got ever more complicated. There are 6 or 7 elements in an executive pay package now, so much so that some of the executives don't even understand what they're being paid, let alone shareholders or anyone else.
So are you actually going to put your report to the government? Are you going to call for government intervention in this?
Yes, we are. Yes, we're calling on government to take up our recommendations. We would very much like to go forward with it. Vince Cable's obviously got a consultation paper of his own out at the moment, and Ed Miliband mentioned the need for pay reform in his speech at the Labour Party conference.
Just short of £2.7 million. The rise, which covers salary, benefits and bonuses, was higher than the 43% jump in the pay of chief executives. Well, that compares to figures out this week, which said that workers in the private sector received an average pay rise of 2.6%. Well, earlier, my colleague Mark Longhurst spoke to the chief executive of WPP Group and Sky News Money panel member Sir Martin Sorrell and asked him to justify high salaries.
If you look at what happens across the business, you're seeing significant increases of even greater amounts.
What do you make of that? We just had this from Deborah Hargreaves, who, as you know, is chair of the High Pay Commission. I think it's very hard to justify these sorts of pay increases when we've seen company share prices go down, profits down. But this is the point. Just listen to this point, if you will, Sir Martin. She says, I think performance-related pay doesn't really work. We have lots of studies looking into it, and it has a very marginal effect.
No, you paint it. No,
I'm not painting it. That's the High Pay Commission.
No, with due respect, that's outrageous. We started 26 years...
Well, the High Pay Commission is outrageous.
Wait a minute. You won't let me finish. Right. We have a plan for the top 20, 25 people in the company where they invest in the company. These are not options where it's heads I win, tails you lose. You refer to pay. Pay is about base pay, true. It's also about incentives, both short and long-term incentives. And if that's the way the High Pay Commission wants to play it, you will end up with less competitive, less well-run companies who either go elsewhere, mobility, either go elsewhere or go into private equity.